It's still 7 o'clock, so I'm going to call the November meeting of the Farmington Zoning Board of Appeals to order, and I welcome everyone this evening. And I guess before we start, let's call the roll, please.
Certainly. Commissioner Subramanian is absent. Commissioner Mastrobatista.
Present.
Commissioner De Santoro. Commissioner Walsh.
Here.
Commissioner Grady Benson.
Here.
Commissioner Cloud.
Here.
Commissioner Callahan.
Here.
Commissioner Gemsky.
Here.
And Chairman Shohorn.
Here. So at this time, I'm going to ask the secretary to read the legal notice for tonight's meeting.
Sure. Town of Farmington Zoning Board of Appeals notice is hereby given that the Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a hybrid in-person and online public hearing on Monday, November 18th, 2024 at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers on the following applications. Matthew Yard application for special exception to expand an existing non-conforming building for reconstruction of a single-family home at 100 Red Oak Hill Road, R30 zone. Matthew Yard application for variance to reduce front yard setback from 40 feet to 18 feet to new house and reduce front porch setback from 20 feet to 15 feet for the reconstruction of a single family home at 100 Red Oak Hill Road, R30 zone. Kemper Associates Architects LLC application for variance to reduce side yard setback from 15 feet to 1 foot 8 feet for addition. 8 inches feet for addition of carport located at 35 Garden Street, R20 zone. Interested parties are encouraged to participate in this hybrid public hearing. The link of this meeting may be found on the Town of Farmington's website. A copy of this proposal is available online or by calling the Planning Department at Farmington Town Hall at 860-675-2325, dated at Farmington, Connecticut, October 30th, 2024. Farmington Zoning Board of Appeals, John Shoehorn, Chairman.
The way we're going to handle the first matter, there are two requests being made on one application. One is for a special exception, and the other would be for a variance. Under our rules and regulations, there are different criteria that we consider depending on whether or not we grant a special exception versus a variance. So even though we're going to hear the two applications of the 100 Red Oak Hill Road request at the same time, we're going to vote separately if a special exception is granted or permitted. Then we don't have to get to the question of whether there's a hardship that would otherwise be we'd have to vote on and to vary the zoning regulations of the town. So the way we operate is whoever's going to speak on behalf of the applicant will come forward. We need to use the microphone for purposes of recording. I'm going to ask whoever's to be speaking in favor of the application right now to state their name, their address. If they have a specific title, they should also do so. Then we'll hear the members of the board will ask questions. Then we'll hear from anyone else who wants to speak. First in favor, then anyone who wants to speak against the application. And then at the end of that, the applicant will have the opportunity to respond to anything that has been raised after the presentation if it's not part of the questioning. So I also want to note for the record that Commissioner Subramanian has arrived. So now everybody is here. So welcome. This is the first time in a long time that everyone has been present. So, okay. So at this time, we'll hear from the applicant or the applicant's representative. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Matt Reel. Address is 96 Daniel Trace, Burlington, Connecticut. I would be the builder for this development at 100 Red Oak Hill Road. I mean, I'm not sure you guys took a look at everything.
Just for the record,
Yep.
We have an entire package of material that includes the application by Mr. Yard. We have copies of the building plans, including the survey. Then there are a lot of pictures, some with which I went out on Saturday.
Mhm.
And just from the rail trail, I took some pictures of the rear because at the time we only had pictures from the front
Mhm.
and the side. So there've been
We-
extra pictures that I think the town took after that, but we have, I assume you've seen what our package is, right?
So, yeah, so we've, if you notice, we tried to design this home, to sort of work obviously with the lot. I mean, to pull back the original house, was off just out of my head. I want to say roughly 12, maybe 15 feet closer to the road. So we have more square footage that is, we need a variance for, but it is farther back than the original house, is at this point. We did design everything to try and be, sort of cohesive, with some of the newer development that has taken place in and around that area also.
If we can back up just for a second, could
Mhm.
you explain the circumstances? I mean, I understand there was a fire, the house has been substantially damaged so that it's my understanding you're going to tear down the currently existing house and replace it with a new house. That's not going to be on in the same footprint
Correct.
of it looks like it's a Cape Cod style house.
Yeah, it's like a cape, and the foundation, I mean, there's so much structural damage, and it's so much that needs to go into this home. We have a stone foundation to begin with, just trying to rebuild on a stone foundation and put close to $500,000 on a stone foundation today that is crumbling, really. It's not feasible. It really isn't. You really don't want to, for sort of, my words be put a lipstick on a pig. It's just, you wouldn't do that. It's not the right thing to do. So that's why we're presenting this home to be built on that site.
And am I correct that what you just said, that although this house is currently non-conforming and it predates zoning in the town?
Correct. Yeah, it did.
So the question though is, it's my understanding that the front yard setback for the new house will be less non-conforming, that it'll be further from the road, but
Yes.
the total square footage is greater non-conforming than what is currently.
That is exactly correct.
All right, so I need you to, at least for our purposes, because there's a difference between how we look at a special exception versus a variance, right?
Yep.
And the way I want to run this meeting is we're going to first decide on whether a special exception is appropriate.
Mhm.
But I want you to explain why the nonconformity is greater or needs to be greater than what is currently there now.
Okay, so you're talking about the square footage, like you just said, the square footage that is closer to the road now versus what we proposed. Is that what you meant though, by your question?
Well,
It's still talking about the distance off the road, right?
well, I don't want to,
I didn't know if,
that's
what you-
that's one of the debates that I'd like you to explain.
Mhm.
I understand that it's further from the road, but the total square footage of non-conformity is
Right.
greater. One of the things we'll have to decide, I think you may, as a builder, know.
I can explain. Yeah, I think I know what you're saying. So when this house was built, when there was no regulations, is basically at the time, I mean, this house, I believe the front of the house faces the bike path at this point. I mean, the side, it's
Used to
really.
be the railroad. right?
Yeah, the railroad, right? I mean, you're almost looking at the side of the house to some degree that's non-conforming. Now, if we put that house together the way it is designed now with the side of the house facing Red Oak Hill, you guys be like, why would you do such a thing? So when you turn the house, I mean, you're obviously going to have a greater, more frontage that's going to be non-conforming. That's really the basis of the design and why that took place, because the house is shifted totally different. The front of the house now faces the road, not the side.
And but that's by design, right? That's just a aesthetic thing, right?
Well, it's not just aesthetics, it's feasibility too. I mean, right now, I mean, it's all wrong. I mean, the whole design, the whole lock structure, everything, because, you know, so it didn't, with the times, it doesn't, it really isn't built correctly in the right, like, sort of, I mean, no one builds a house today, or very few people would build a house and the side of the house would be facing the front of the road. I guess that's the easiest way to put it. That's what we have there now. I mean, I don't know if that explains it, but you just typically wouldn't do that. Does that make, I mean,
I understand what you're saying.
yeah, I mean, I don't think you guys would want me to design and build a house like that today, would you? I mean, I guess I'm trying
You
to
don't get into the design, right?
yeah, no, I think I'm looking at it, I'm trying to look at it or explain it to you guys as though I'm trying to do the right thing, not because it's wrong today. I don't want to sort of jump off a cliff like everybody else. I want to make it right. You know what I mean?
Could you just explain what you mean by wrong? And I'll preface that by saying, I live on a hill
Mhm.
and I didn't build this house, but I'm the second owner, but it was oriented. So, and I didn't know this at the time because I have a switchback in my driveway.
Mhm.
The rear of my house actually faces the road. I didn't know that because there's woods.
Okay,
Right.
right.
So when I built a structure, there was, I had to get town approval. But it was, so the direction of where the house actually, what's considered the front and what's considered the side or the rear. When you say it's wrong, it's by preference of whoever builds it, I assume, right?
Not really. I mean, every lot is different. It sounds like your lot, you're set off from the road.
It's a rear lot.
Okay, so there you go. So with my experience, that's what I was picking up. So if you're farther away from the road, you can do a lot of different things. But on a smaller lot like this, there's not much. I mean, if you couldn't even tell, you said, when you were on the road facing, looking at the house, you could see the rear of your home, you didn't know, right? Until you get up there. This house, if being this close to the road and not having trees, you'd know right away.
I understand.
I mean, there's just different lots you can do different things with. I mean,
Mr. Chair.
And I have just one other, before you
Mhm.
continue, one other
Yeah.
question that I'm gonna ask you to address.
Mhm.
From what we read, the property is owned by the town
yeah, that's correct.
and it's a private house how does, I've never heard of that. So can you explain that?
I can explain it.
right.
It's something that staff is aware of. So in part of the planning side, last summer we did a whole affordable housing workshop series. So there are a number of properties in town that are owned by the town. It's called the Cooperative Housing Program. The goal is to decrease the cost of a home by the town now owning the land. And then the property owner owns and builds their own home. There's restrictions on who can purchase. There's income restrictions on who can purchase based on numbers from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And then the way the process works is that the town then collects rent for the land. I think it's the rent is what the taxes for the land would be every year. So instead of having to pay for the land through a normal mortgage and paying tax on the land, you're just paying taxes for the land. So the land could be, $150,000 worth of the total home cost. So in this case, the property owners, the yards own the home, and they're allowed to rebuild the home as well. In discussion with our Director of Social Services, Nancy Perrin, as long as it's not worse than what was there before, they're allowed to proceed. But the town will own the land for not much longer. I think it's a total of 40 years. It's less than 10 years. The lease will expire, and they'll have the opportunity to purchase the land or extend the lease. The yards or whoever owns it at that time. I don't remember the date off the top of my head, but I had to find this information out recently for the state.
And then last question then, does the town need to be a joint applicant for this?
Yes and no. So there's a letter from the Director of Social Services, Nancy Parent, giving permission to apply for a permit. So this would be, we use this frequently in both for building permits, for planning and zoning permits, and for wetlands permits. So if you don't own the land yet, but you want to apply for the permit, or if you're a contractor applying for a permit on behalf of the homeowner, they'll usually provide a letter saying, I'm the homeowner, I give this person permission to pull any necessary permits, which is what has been provided by Nancy Parent, the Director of Social Services.
Right, but I see that letter, but I guess I'm looking at it in terms of procedurally. It's one thing to say they can rebuild. It doesn't indicate whether they authorize the particular home that's being proposed, or the structure that's being proposed. That's what I'm just trying to procedurally.
Yeah, in
sure that
the
we're not
letter,
missing a step.
the letter does not say that. I have verified with Nancy Parent on the phone, and also included her with the agenda review when it was sent out to the applicants.
All right, I didn't mean to interrupt. There was some
Fine.
clarification I needed regarding this. So
Yeah,
I wanna-
no, I understand. It's not something you see every day.
Right.
But I mean, I don't I don't know if you have any other questions, just, we tried to design the home, push back, the house, so there, the variance would be less obtrusive, I guess, than what we have today. And, we think we did a pretty good job at that, working with Deno, and we had the septic, that we were dealing with that's behind the house. We have to move the well, in order to do this. It's not, conforming at all. I think the well is roughly 25 feet right now from the septic. It's supposed to be a minimum of 75 feet.
Yeah.
I mean, so we're gonna be making that, bringing that up to health code, moving that, making sure that that's, in compliance with the health department. But we really are, we have the septic we're dealing with, so we can't move the house back any farther.
Mr. Chairman, could I just provide some context for the special exception?
Yeah.
Okay. So under Connecticut general statutes, existing non-conforming uses and structures are protected by state statute. They cannot be expanded by right, but the town can also not force it to be abandoned. We can't, if the application was not before the board tonight, the town couldn't say, if in 5 years you have to move the house 20 feet back, so it's no longer in the front yard. It's protected by state statutes. The town can't do anything to force the removal. Through adjustments to the state statutes and some case law, a non-conforming use exists in perpetuity unless a property owner provides documentation that they're abandoning the non-conforming use. So theoretically, the homeowner could demolish this home today, wait 10 years, and build the exact same house in the exact same footprint because it's protected by state statute. And as long as they have documentation that the nonconformity existed, then the town would be forced to issue the permit. The request tonight is to rebuild a new home while maintaining the nonconformity with the front yard setback, however, reducing it in exchange for increasing the total area within the front yard setback. So the home would be sliding back, but the area would expand. And that is what the special permit is for special exception is for expansion of the nonconformity. So nonconformity remains, but they're looking to expand upon it.
And is it my understanding that the courts that have interpreted the nonconformity statute say that under no circumstances should the nonconformity be allowed to be increased?
Yeah, so that's
So the question is the further setback from the road, does that trump, I don't excuse the use of that term, the total square footage of being larger than it was before.
Correct.
And so that's the question.
Right, and that's why it's presented as both a special exception and a variance, so that if the
Right,
board does
that's why we're
not find.
doing both. If we
Right, so if the
find
board
that
does
it
not find it-
If we find that it increases the nonconformity, then we're not by law allowed to or permitted to allow a special exception. That's my understanding of the law.
Yes, however, the power is delegated to the zoning board of appeals to allow for expansion of a nonconformity by the town plan and zoning commission.
There's an actual,
It's in it's in our zoning regulations. It's a power, the zoning board of appeals shall be empowered to act on the following types of application. Number 2, decide requests for special exception in the following cases. B, extension of a non-conforming use or building.
well, extension is, I don't see that as increase. That's the difference. I don't,
Extension of a non-conforming building.
Uh,
So
I thought extend means continue it. Allow it to continue as opposed to make it larger.
I would say, I would disagree with you that, Mr. Chairman. Just because the state statute says the use can continue in perpetuity. You could, a different way to think about it would be, in a industrial, I'm trying to think of a good, let's just say that there's a use in a business zone. And it's a tenant in a building. There's 2 tenants in the building. One is a non-conforming use, one is a conforming use. The conforming use vacates the property. This non-conforming use wants to expand to occupy the whole building. That would fall under the purview of the zoning board of appeals for the expansion of the use, extension of the use. Non-conforming use, I'm sorry.
All right, but I didn't mean to, again, we're having this legal debate right now, but interpreting our regulations, but I wanted to make sure you made your presentation, then the members of the board will ask you questions, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think you guys, I mean, I think Garrett, myself explained to you everything. I mean, really, I mean, I think we did a good job because we moved this house back quite a bit from the road. I mean, granted, there is more of a footprint that we need a variance for, but we're farther from the road. So we eliminated, you know, a house that was 12 feet from the road, roughly. And, you know, I think that works better all the way around for that lot. You know, we're constricted too, you know, it's not like there's a lot of room. If we had more room, we would have pushed it back farther. We just don't have that ability, so.
Are you, and I just want to be, before I turn it over, I just want to, are you presenting both the reason for an exception and why, if we don't agree that we can make it larger, that you also want to give us your reasons why we should grant a variance, which we are clearly allowed to do under the regulations? You know what I'm saying? I mean, what's the hardship? I know you want to make a house that's bigger than what was there now, and it looks like you're making more of a modern, I guess, I don't know.
It's your,
Like a colonial.
it's your
style.
standard, 4-bedroom colonial
Yeah.
home, family home. You know, Matt has, 3 little kids. You know, it's not a massive house by any stretch. It's your standard average home, I would say, maybe in Farmington, possibly on the smaller side, but I mean, it's not exceptionally large by any stretch.
Well, I might have a few more questions, but let
Mhm.
me turn it over
Yeah.
to the, and are you done
Yeah,
with?
yeah,
your
with it, yeah. Mhm.
Presentation?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
And do you at least want to address the shape of the lot in terms of why the house needs to be in the location that you're proposing?
Well, I mean, there's, I mean, if you look at the lot configuration, I mean, there's really not much, there's no other good alternative whatsoever. I mean, it's sort of a pie-shaped lot. You know, we did what we could to fit this in. We also, design this house with the side load garage to try and get more room off the road for the driveway, because right now it was front facing. So we did that too, which, you don't have garage doors and cars parked right near the main road. We took we took a lot of time in trying to design this to make it work, for the commission, the town, and the lot, and Matt's family. So, I mean, I would leave it at that.
All right, so Commissioner Subramanian, do you have any questions?
Not at this time.
Commissioner Master Batista?
You're challenged here on this lot, correct? Is that your biggest challenge?
Very much so, yeah. All the way around we are.
So you're challenged on this lot to build a new home, and you want to make a little larger home.
Mhm.
So can you explain your challenges? Why you have to, what you had to do to configure this house to get it on this lot?
Mhm.
Okay, and sounds like you have some significant challenges with the septic system and setbacks and everything like this. Maybe tell us your real challenges on this thing.
Okay.
Because that seems to be the big hardship here is your space. You're running
Yeah.
out of space and you want to put a little larger home for
Right.
this family who unfortunately their house burned down.
Right.
And now they got to go through this process to get up and running.
Right.
So, give us some nuts and bolts of.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean,
Dealing with
so I guess, first and foremost, the lot is not that deep.
Right.
And we have a septic in the back. We have our town road in the front. We had to move the well. We could do that, not cheaply, but well's roughly 17,000. We took that out. We're gonna move that to get the house back farther. But then we ran into the septic, and there's not septic. The challenge with that is there's not much space, you know what I mean? That you can just move that. You're very limited in space for that. And the overall cost. So we have both, and then, so we have the front, and there's no more space. I mean, there's really, on that lot there's not much room to move it other than
Your biggest
that.
challenge right now is
Space,
and
yeah,
getting a little larger,
Yeah.
more square footage on this house.
right. And this house, sir, is a colonial, so we
Yep.
tried to maximize
Every inch.
everything we could do,
Every
yeah,
inch.
to eliminate having a larger footprint. The colonial is your
Yep.
best
All
way
right,
to.
well, you're on
best
a
way.
roll there, so if there's anything that's, any other challenges, speak up.
Well, I mean, no, I appreciate it. I think that's, I mean, that pretty much covers it as far as the conformity of the lot, and what we're up against and trying to fit this on this lot. We just don't have any more room to go left, right, back. I mean,
Drainage issues, anything like that, big,
we're gonna raise the home a little because this was built lower. I think we're gonna probably have to, if we can get approved, we would probably raise it at least a foot, to try and eliminate, all the water coming in off the main road, just to sort of make that drainage work better. But as far as impacting other neighbors and such, shouldn't be any issues there.
all right, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner De Santoro?
I just have one question. To understand the driveway, so the house used to face the trail, which I walk all the time.
Yes, yep.
And that used to be the face. So where was the driveway? Was the driveway still on the other side? or-
Yeah, it was off Red Oak Hill Road, and it came in off of, yep, so there you see it,
There.
yep. That is perfect picture right there, though, yep.
Thank you. that's
Yep.
it.
It's correct.
Commissioner Walsh?
No questions at this time.
Okay.
Commissioner Jemski?
Garrett, can you just repeat the zoning regulations that you read off one more time, please?
I'll be here. Actually, I can pull it up. So I pull my phone down. All right, so in the Town of Farmington zoning regulations, Article 5, Section 4, well, I'm sorry, it should be Section 5, it's mislabeled. Zoning Board of Appeal, sorry about that. All right, powers and duties, the zoning board of appeals shall be empowered to act on the following types of applications. And then we jump down to number 2, decide requests for special exceptions in the following cases. Letter B, extension of a non-conforming use or building.
Okay. And then, to the chair's question about whether or not the town is a party to the application, is there any precedent that this is how this type of I'm just wondering if this has ever happened in any, do you know of any cities or towns where this has happened? And
That
I understand that the letter is from the social services,
because
but it's land, right? I mean.
right, so the social services department is the one that administers the program. They're the ones
Right.
that have acquired the land
Okay.
through the affordable housing fund
Yep.
that the town has. Sometimes it gets built up by capital improvement projects, sometimes it's by donation. Sometimes it's the sale of property or rental income that kind of gets put aside to help purchase more land.
Yep.
I don't know if there's about close to 30 homes in Farmington. I'm assuming I can't tell you for certain if it occurs in other towns. I'm assuming that Farmington was not the first one to come up with this program. But it's been around for decades at this point. I can see if I have access to information to let you know how far back the program goes.
Okay.
Is
Thank
that
you.
it? Commissioner Cloud,
No questions.
Commissioner Rick Gray Benson.
Could you just tell me the difference in square footage of the existing home versus what you're trying to propose today?
I would have to refer to Matt. I'm not sure I want to say, the existing house might be around 2,000 square feet. And this new home, I believe, is around 28, 29.
So there isn't an exact figure.
Oh,
I don't have it off. I'm sorry. I don't know the
Commissioner
original.
Greedy Benson, if you just hold on one second.
Thank you.
Um,
And then
All right.
I'll ask another question while you're looking for that. Just another question.
Mm-hmm.
So you're, just for me, I'm not an architect and I don't know how to read a lot of these plans. So
Yeah, no problem.
just get some clarity. So the proposal is to move it back how many feet from the road?
We're going to be,
so
Oh,
I can help.
yeah,
The
it would be on the
existing-
plot plan.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
the existing house, which you should be able, so the existing house, I'll actually, so it's highlighted. We'll go to the next. You'll bear with me for a second. All right,
Yeah, but
I'll go to the next one so we can see the total.
It was kind of confusing because one
Yeah,
shows green
yeah.
and then the other shows green, and which one is it?
Right, so so there's two different maps. There's one which shows the existing and proposed home within the front yard setback. So the front yard setback's here, then proposed is in green, the existing is in red. And then if you'll bear with me for one second. And then there was another map that showed the total outline of both homes.
Right.
So-
And that pink area is gonna go.
Yeah, so the
Yeah.
pink area that's not within the green area is what will be removed. So the existing house was 10 feet, 6 inches from the 10.6 feet, not 6 inches, from the front property line. The proposed home, the closest point of the primary home will be 18.9 feet. That's a small bump out that comes out 2 feet for the front door. And I can highlight that on the architectural plan. So add 2 more feet, 20.9 is how far the rest of the house is from the front property line. And then there'll be just front steps on the front of the home, which will be 15.9 feet from the front property line. And that would be this is kind of the do I have a this would kind of be the bump out on the front. And then that would just be the foyer. What that actually is.
Mhm.
And then in response to your other question, the existing home is approximately 1,714 square feet with approximately 336 square feet of garage space. The proposed living would be 2,853 square feet. And then the garage would be 815 square feet. It's a 3-car garage. That would be, it should be right here. So here's the garage. Way to. That would be the garage. All your questions for me?
Okay.
Do you have any other, is that the only question you have?
And then as far as setback from your neighbor to the west, how many feet are we, is it moving into that as opposed to where it was? Because then you're gonna have the driveway around, or are you gonna have the driveway?
Yep, give me,
There's no change to the side yard
There isn't.
setback, is
no,
there?
there's no request for a side yard variance.
None.
No, so the existing house is about 46 feet from the side property line. The proposed home will be 39.3 feet from the side property line. And the minimum is 15 in this zone.
Great, thank you, thank you.
Commissioner Callahan?
No questions.
I have a few more. The first question is, the next door neighbor to the west, it's a Cape Cod house similar to the one that's being torn down by you, correct? 103 Red Oak? Because we had an application to build, I think, a garage either last year or the year before for that property next door. So right now it's similar to the structure that's there now. So when this house is built, it will no longer be similar to the next door neighbor, correct?
Yeah, I don't believe it is. I can't speak to that home.
Well, I think there it is,
There it
right?
is.
Yep.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
The application, if I recall correctly, was it was to add a garage, add a bay onto the side of the garage, or was it towards the front? I think it was towards the front of the garage, and it was a similar situation where the septic field was located too close to the home to add on to the back of the house.
I do remember that. And I also, in walking along the rail trail, I noticed that there's I don't know how large a development, there's multiple homes being built on a new road called Dominique Court, which is a recent development. It didn't come before us. But are the houses that appear to be being built there similar in design to the proposal you're making here, or are you unfamiliar with what's being?
Mr. Chairman, I could speak on that, just as from the plain side. So the homes are larger than this proposed home, but they're a similar colonial style.
That's what I meant, that
Yeah.
they're larger, but it's more of the similar style of a colonial contemporary as opposed to Cape,
Yes,
such as what's there now, which is going to be.
and
Yeah.
just to clarify, so there's there'll be 6 lots on the new Dominique's Court, and then the developer of that subdivision also got a lot approved off of Red Oak Hill Road, so there'll be a new colonial style home further back from the road. It'll be in this general area, but again, the home will be similar in size to the rest of the homes on that proposed subdivision.
And is any of that construction going to affect runoff in terms of the location of this house, in terms of whether or not it poses hardships that this property might face as a result of all that new construction of what used to be woods, I assume?
Do we see an impact on 100 Red Oak?
Yes.
No, not at all.
Okay,
No.
okay.
Hmm.
And in some of these pictures, including the ones that I submitted and are part of the package, next to there's a wood, like a fireplace, wood shed to the side there that's next to the 103. But what's that red large tank thing that's next to the shed? Because that's
That,
not,
well, the shed and that tank are going to be removed.
oh, okay.
Yeah, they're not permanent. They will be removed.
What is that tank?
Yeah, what is that thing?
I think that it was just a storage tank. I don't think there was,
Like
nothing.
oil storage tank?
I don't know. It's not mine, so I don't know what's stored in there or what's in it.
Oh, so the
Right.
owner is not here.
No, the owner is Matt.
Oh,
I don't know.
Oh, so maybe he can answer that question.
Yeah, he could better than me. I don't know, but
Okay.
I know that they are going to be removed though.
They are going to be
Mhm.
removed.
So, yeah.
Because it's not noted in your application that they're going to be. removed.
They will be removed.
Okay,
Mm.
so my rough math suggests that you're asking within the non-conformity, an increase of just shy of 150 square feet. Does that sound right? We're going from 1,081 square feet that are non-conforming up to 1,230.26 square feet?
Sounds about right.
All right. And your argument, as I understand it, is that, well, you're going to be further back from the row, but you're in total going to increase the nonconformity by that amount, 150
That's correct.
plus square feet.
That's correct.
So let me ask you this question.
Mhm.
If I take the position, and I'll just note, I read a bunch of cases on this because we don't see this all the time.
Nope.
And the language from the Connecticut Supreme Court and the Appellate Court is, and I'll just read you one or two sentences, is that the fundamental principle in Connecticut is that non-conforming uses should be abolished or reduced to conformity as quickly as the fair interest of the parties will permit. In no case should they be allowed to increase.
Mhm.
And that cites a case called Varillo versus Zoning Board of Appeals of Branford from 2015. A Milford Adolphson, ADOLPHSON versus Zoning Board of Appeals of Milford, which is a 1988 case. And then there's a case also from Milford, Jaser, JASER versus ZBA of Milford from 1996, which in fact, that case involved a house burning down and the owner wanted to build a larger house that would in fact increase the nonconformity, and they said you couldn't do that.
Mhm.
So what I'm struggling with, and there was one other more recent case, Turek, TURECK, versus Zoning Board of Appeals from 2020, where a hurricane destroyed a house down on the shore. And and because of FEMA regulations, they had to build it 1 story higher. And but that would violate, I guess, Milford's height requirement for that zone.
Mhm.
So they said they couldn't do that because you could build a house that was only 2 stories and stay within the conformity. It would not increase the nonconformity. So having said all that,
Mhm.
is it possible for you to decrease the size by 150 square feet so that it is no larger a nonconformity than exists now, if I'm interpreting the square footage to be what is considered non-conforming? Conforming.
I mean, look at, every case is different. I mean, every case that you just stated. I mean, look, I would think that a reasonable and look at what we're doing, moving the house back so the conformity is, so there's the house, the nonconformity of the house is farther back. I would think that you, as the commission, you looking at that, you would rather have that than have the square footage that is in nonconformity now as close as to the road as it is.
No, I understand that argument. I'm and that's something we'll debate once the hearing is closed, but I'm trying to ask you the question. If I were to interpret the law in a
Mhm.
way that the square footage is what we're trying to reduce, as opposed to that you move it back one side, but it increases on another, that's not reducing the nonconformity. If that's how I
Mhm.
decide, I'm gonna hear what other people have to say. If
Right.
That's how I interpret it. My question's a more practical one. Is there a way to either move it back, let's say just 10 feet or
Right.
less, so that the nonconformity does not
Is,
go above the 1,081 square feet?
We-
that are Now
okay.
non-conforming.
so I think I can answer that. I had Deno move this house back as far as possible to that septic. Our original plan, had this house wider. We shrunk that down. I can't build a colonial that's 24, 20 feet wide. It just doesn't work. So to answer your question, we could not build this house. If the commission did not grant us this, we cannot build this house there.
All right, and and as I understand it, the left side of the house is where the garages are. If this was 2 garages instead of 3, would that bring it down to conformity?
No, it wouldn't, because we also took that plan that we had and we shifted the garage back. So the garage isn't,
There's no non-conformity, the garage is not within the setback
well, we
down?
set the garage back farther. I mean, we can't, to build this type of house, I mean, it's got to work too. The garage is in line with the house. I mean, just to set that back, it really doesn't work that well.
When you say not work, you mean aesthetically, right?
Well, no, and work. I mean, you have to, the design has to work also. It's not just aesthetics, it's the design itself too. I mean, so typically the garage, we would bring forward by 6 feet, but we pushed it back as far as we could. If you look, it's in line with, the home, I believe. The front of the house and the front of the garage should be in line. And typically it's the other way around.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. All right, is there anything else you want to add in light of any of the questions? Or I'm going to see if any of the members of the board have additional questions, because we go in order, but then I'll just open it up. But
I
then
mean, no, I mean, I nothing that haven't already said. I think this is a better fit for the street, the town. I think it works all the way around. I really do. I mean, we look at everything. As a builder, I'm not just proposing this thinking you guys, you're good, let's go. We put a lot of thought into this. We look at what you guys as a town wants also. I mean, we thought that you would be happy with how we proposed this.
well, don't get me wrong, there's still the issue of the question of the variance, right? Based on, and I just want to make sure you've explained everything about the need for a variance. If, I don't know, I don't know how anyone else is going to look at this issue of the exception. I'll just say my view is in our regulations, the word extension, I understand that to mean continue. You can continue with the town can't stop a nonconformity. But I don't necessarily read that to mean you can make it larger, because that's not how I understand the word extension.
Well, like I was trying to say, if you look at the area in the pink, would the town rather have that area in the pink exist? And then we just try to get back to conformity? Is that what the commission would rather see?
Well, I'm not speaking for the commission. I'm asking questions at this point, right? So well, let's put it this way. You can continue, if you rebuild the exact house with a new foundation, that would automatically be permissible, as I understand our regulations and the statutes. You could, if a house burned to the ground, you could build the same house even if the whole thing was non.
That's correct.
Okay, so the question is, you want to build a different house.
Mhm.
And the issue is you want it to be bigger, and I understand why.
Mhm.
And I'm not a designer and I'm not an architect, right? And I know how to look at a survey or some architectural drawings. But if I conclude that this increases a nonconformity, and if I decide that is not permissible, if I
Mhm.
personally,
Mhm.
I'm now want you to explain the issue of the land as why that may be a hardship, would require, or at least suggest why we should vote for it as a, variance as opposed to a special exception. And that's, normally we don't face these.
Yeah,
two,
well-
although it turns out we might have one next month
Yeah, go for
of
it.
a similar type of,
Mhm.
well, it's not up for
Yeah.
today. So that's why I'm trying to address both. We're gonna have a hearing, we're gonna close the hearing at some point and then
Right.
discuss it.
Right.
But I'm trying to have you explain
Mhm.
that aspect of it, just so we have everything that we need
I
to
understand.
decide that. If we decide special exception, we don't have to get to whether there's a hardship.
Mhm.
So,
I understand. I mean, look,
can you talk more about the land? I mean, you talked about the septic system. You're gonna
Look-
put the well closer to Red Oak Hill and closer to the rail trail. I understand that, right?
correct.
So, what
mean-
is it about the portion of the house that's to the right of the septic system, why it can't go there? If you could maybe just give us some information on that.
Well, we just have, there's nowhere to. There's nowhere. Listen, when Deno took a look at this, you could create a footprint. You have the septic, like I said, right in the back. We're really bound by that. Unless we started doing something really odd and sort of funky shaped, where you had part of the house up front, part of the house in the back, with it looking like you did 2 or 3 additions, I guess, you might be able to pull something off. But to make it look aesthetically pleasing at all, you couldn't do it with this lot. There's no more room. Like I said, you have a septic, you've got the well we're dealing with. As it is, we're shifting the well. Because we can do it, we have to. It's just not safe where it is right now. We think that's huge.
Let me ask one last question.
Mhm,
and
mhm.
I'll just turn it over.
Mhm.
But last question.
Mhm.
So if we look at the far western side in the green of where you want to extend the house, where the number 34 feet 0 inches is located. You see where I'm talking about right there?
Okay.
How many feet is the difference between where the current house is and where you want to bump it out? Is that about 6 feet based on where I see there's other references of 6 feet, or is it more? What is that additional?
Hold on, I can check that for you, Mr. Chairman. Hold on.
I think that's the bump out there, from east to west.
Yeah, so approximately, I'm just
Yeah, around 6 feet.
6 feet. Yeah.
That would be the mudroom
I
area.
just did that eyeballing it, so, I'm.
Right. That's the mudroom area of the newly proposed house, the width of that mudroom.
Right, I've taken up a lot of time here. Does anyone else want to ask a question? Commissioner Subramani.
Hi, okay. So first off, for clarification purposes, I understand that the previous nonconformity is that the house was too close to the front. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So right now we are moving the house further back. What are the new nonconformities? Like what is the trade here?
So the change would be the house would now be located 18.9 feet from the front property line. It's currently at 10.6 feet from the front property line.
Mhm.
There'll be steps at the front. They're open. They're not covered. So those will be at 15.9 feet. The existing area within the setback of the existing home, not including the covered porch, is 1,081 square feet. And the proposed area within the front yard setback for the new home is 1,230 square feet. So it's moving further back, but the area is increasing, and that's what this.
Oh, okay. So to be clear, so the house is still technically non-conforming. There's still some areas that are in the restricted zone, but because the house itself is getting bigger, there are more restricted zone areas.
Yes, yes. So
Okay.
it's the request is to make the house more non-conforming in terms of the area of the home.
Okay. And is there a reason why the square footage necessarily needs to be bigger?
I mean, the reason would be is, I mean, as it is, Matt living there with 3 kids and a wife and himself, yeah, he was definitely outgrowing that house for sure.
Okay. So
I mean, go ahead.
is there anything more than just personal desire to have a bigger house?
Well, it's just being able to sort of function in a house with that many kids and, right? I mean, it's not really a personal desire, but I mean, I had 3 kids myself. Believe me, you can't have too much space.
Yeah. I hear that.
Yes.
And also I know earlier somewhere in there you mentioned like turning the house and that it would be odd if like the side of the house like like I know you like turned the house in a way. If you turned it the way that you were mentioning, would it potentially be conforming?
Well, I mean, look at, I can, if you don't mind, if you shifted this house
Mhm.
this way.
Just so you know, you're not being picked up by a microphone.
So if you if you shifted this house this way, so it was angled,
Mhm.
I mean, that could potentially help. It just wouldn't be in line with the road.
Okay.
You know, it'd be off. It would be off, not parallel with the road. That could potentially give us a little more space, you know, a little more, square footage that would be non-conforming.
Okay.
You know, or you're a little less rather space that would be non-conforming. I mean, that's possible. It wouldn't work as well to get in the garage. I mean, it makes it a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, you know, that's really it. I mean, I don't know what else, you know, what else you could do with this particular home to make this home fit any better.
Okay.
I mean, really the biggest thing, how again, I look at it is we might be increasing the square footage of nonconformity, but we're lessening the sort of nonconformity as far as if you just look at the square footage, yes. But we're also look at the square footage that we're moving back from the road. I would think that adds more weight than a couple more square footage that is increased. I mean, basically from what we have now. I mean,
Also,
yeah.
I completely hear you. So when we're like trying to measure the like how big a nonconformity is, like the size of a nonconformity, is it like precedent to do so with like square footage, like non-conformity square footage, or are there other measures that we can take to like figure out how extreme this non-conformity is?
It's our prerogative to interpret, right? In other words, I'll just say, you're asking me this question, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let me just say this, all right? I've looked at a whole bunch of cases, right? And in particular, what it comes down to is it just uses the language that you cannot increase a nonconformity. How we interpret that, if this is appealed, right, we would not be the final arbiter of what that means. We're not allowed to increase a nonconformity. Does it, as far as a special exception is concerned, we could do this if we make the findings as a variance. So let me just be clear about that. But the cases I cited, the Jaser case, the Turek case, the Varillo case, and the which one? Adolphson. Like, I'll use that. I didn't mention the Adolphson case. So in Adolphson, it was a commercial property that was a foundry. So we're talking about fat rendering, right? So it's stinky, smelly, whatever. And it was switched. Somebody wanted to put it was either auto body or auto repair shop in. That was non-conforming, but it was considered a lesser non-conformance. It reduced the non-conformity because it was less offensive to have a auto body shop than a fat rendering foundry there, okay?
Yeah.
So that was interpreted to be okay. So I happen to be a lawyer, as you know, but I'm not an expert in this area, right? I went to law school, I can read cases. Mr. Callahan is an attorney, he could interpret it however he wishes, right? I'm just trying to answer your question, whether or not the square footage increases the nonconformity versus it being further back from the road is something we can decide. And if it's reasonable, it will be upheld. If it's not, it won't be. Okay, that's as much as I can say.
Okay. So it's up to us to determine how we measure this nonconformity and
Right.
yeah. Okay.
Right. We can interpret it our own way, and if it's considered reasonable, it would be upheld. If it's not, it would get reversed, I guess.
Okay.
So does that answer your question?
Yes.
Do you have any other questions of the applicant?
Not at this time.
Does anyone else, I don't have to go through a row, does anyone else want to ask anything?
I do. So I'm looking at the plans and there's a 3-car garage, which was brought up earlier. In the back of the house, so if it is about square footage, and it's not necessarily, it's about the entire square footage of the house, am I correct about that?
No, it's
Just about
No,
that.
just-
setback,
Just this.
Right. Would it be? I guess I'm gonna bring it back to pick up some square footage, is pushing that first garage back. Making it a 2.5-car garage. It's 2 people living there with a car, right? 3-car garage.
Okay, yep.
Making it a 2.5-car garage as opposed to a 3. And then you pick up more square footage in the front. Is that a possibility?
We're trying to eliminate if all the sheds, the wood sheds, all the kind, we're trying to make it so it's a cleaner look.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you've been by there, but there was sheds all over, you remember? We're looking to do away with that and clean this property up. And to do that, we really need to have a 3-car garage. Unless we start putting sheds and all kinds of stuff, which we don't want to do. And I wouldn't think you guys would either.
Thank you.
That is the reason for the 3-car. It's not just the vehicles, it's
Storage.
stuff.
Anyone else, or is that it? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone here wishes to speak in favor? You
Okay.
You can have a seat. Anyone want to speak in favor of this application? I don't know, Mr. Yard, if you want to add anything, answer any of the questions that were asked that your builder wasn't sure about. Okay, I'd like to know if you wouldn't mind coming forward. What is that red tank that's there? You could explain that. and just have you tell us that you're gonna remove that.
So yeah, that red tank was closer to the garage and heated the garage. The garage was obviously the worst of the fire, so we just moved it out of the way. And it was just extra fuel storage for the house when it was affordable. And yeah, we are gonna remove it.
So it was actually an external oil, above ground oil tank that you used
It was in the garage.
heating oil?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
thank you. Anyone have any questions? Thank you,
Yeah,
sir.
thanks.
Does anyone else wish to speak either on, are we also
Yeah, let me do the,
online?
do you want to do the,
Well, let me just ask, anyone here wants to speak in opposition to this application? In the room, hearing none, so Mr. Daigle, is there anyone online who wishes to speak?
all right. If anyone has called into this meeting that would like to speak for or against this application, please use the raise hand function in Zoom. Again, if anyone has signed on and would like to speak for or against the application, please use the raise hand function. So, Mr. Chairman, I do have someone with a hand raised.
All right, so.
Jessica Kolakowski, you should be able to speak now.
could you
Hello.
please state your name for the record and your address, please.
Yes, it's Jessica Kolakowski and it's 27 Buena Vista Street in Unionville.
What would you like to state?
So I just wanted to speak on behalf of accepting the proposal. This Matt is my brother-in-law and it was my sister and my nieces and nephew who lost their home to the fire. I can't speak to conformity or anything like that. That's not something that I am versed in and I'm not going to pretend to be. So I'm just going to speak to moving forward with rebuilding the home that my sister and her family lost. I know it's been difficult for them they've lived with me, my parents, they've moved all over until they could finally find a rental. Obviously the housing market is not great. So, you know, and living in Farmington, we see monstrosities built every day in Farmington. I don't think this house is anything extreme that they're looking to do. I think, you know, they want to raise their kids back where they know is home. And I would just like to see how we can make that possible for them.
Thank you. And before we close the hearing, I just got Mr. Daigle, if you would just remind us, what is the required distance from either a septic system or a leaching field under?
I know the distance from so I'll in the health code, it specifies septic tanks must be 25 feet from a structure containing a footing drain. Building code requires that all new homes have footing drains, so that would apply. I'm saying that because if there was a shed, you could be closer to the tank. If it was just sitting on the ground, that could be close to the tank. But a home with footing drains as required by the building code must be a minimum of 25 feet from the tank. The plan showed at 28 and at 0.6 feet from the tank, just to be on the safe side.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. All right.
And then, Mr. Chairman, I just I put it under the staff comments just before you close the public hearing. So if you decide that it's not a special exception for expansion of non-conforming and it requires a variance, the motion we made for the variance, staff's just requesting that it be rounded down to the nearest whole foot. So 18 feet for the house, 15 feet for the porch. We know there's some ledge due to the subdivision that's currently under construction. So I wouldn't expect it to be at this location, but just in case, something gets hit, the house has to move a few inches, just be covered now than having to come back in the future. As long as no board members have an opposition to that motion.
I understand.
That's about
Thank
all.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so now the hearing is closed and I think we should first have a motion on the issue of the special exception and not and we won't, depending on the vote on that, we won't need to get into the question of the variance. So I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the application of Matthew Yard for a special exemption to expand an existing non-conforming use for the building of a reconstructed single-family home at 100 Red Oak Hill.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, discussion, and I guess,
I made the motion.
why don't you
I
start?
think it's a valid trade-off within our discretion as set forth in the zoning regulations, that although there's a slight increase in the square footage that is within the setback requirement, there's a significant reduction in the proximity of the home to Red Oak Hill. So I think we have the discretion, and it's a valid exemption, and should be approved.
Anyone else wishes to,
I'm getting stuck a little bit on the fact that this land is owned by the town of Farmington. And a letter saying from someone from the social services department saying that it's okay for us to move on this. I guess I'm a little confused about that.
well, and I look at that letter, my concern, I have to echo that, is that it doesn't specify that they approve of this particular plan. It is that they agree, I'm looking at the letter dated November 1st from Nancy Parent, that they authorize the pulling of permits and beginning to start work at 10 Red Oak Hill Road. So I'm not sure to what extent that is authority to go forward with a what I would call an increase in the nonconformity. So I have to say that was a concern I had raised as well. Does anyone else want to address that or talk about that issue? Covered it on the board? Nope. Right. So now I'll just state what a lot of my questions. Does anyone want to say anything else before I give my opinion about this motion? No. Okay. So I'll just say this. I read these cases. A lot of them have to do with like things like destruction of homes. I read the language, and there's also when I went to law school, the one of the top people on for land use was I believe his name was Terry Tondro. He's written the book on land use, and he also is quoted in some of these cases. And the language is, as I understand it, a quote, a non-conforming structure cannot be increased in size. And the area of non-conforming use may not be enlarged, or it says extended, but I think we can extend based on our zoning regulations, but enlarged, they cannot. So I therefore feel that based on the case law, I can't grant a special exception. And I'll say I feel differently when it comes to a variance, but I'm just saying that interpreting the law, we're talking about 150 square feet, that this home could be altered. Some of the questions suggested that it could be either reduced in size, and we can't consider the family size because this is the permanent change. If the family decided to move, this is the house. This is permanently with the land, and it could be one person living there. So I can't take that into consideration. So based on that, I have to say I'm going to vote no. So does anyone else want to comment, or should we do a roll call vote of the regular members? All right, let's call the question.
All right.
Well,
Well,
before
wait
we
a
go, I do have a thought. Carrie mentioned discretion and what level of discretion we have. I mean, we're not supposed to let emotions get into any of these decisions, but I do want to recognize that this was a terrible tragedy for your family. And I'm sure that all of us feel horrible about that. And if we have the discretion to make this happen, I would be in favor of making this happen. I don't think that it does harm. We've not heard from anybody who has been opposed to this, any neighbors or any concerns. Are we completely conforming with the law? Maybe a little bit off on it, but you know, that we'll let the body vote, but my personal opinion is that we should allow this to happen for this man and his family.
All right, so let's have a roll call.
All right, give me 1 second, Mr. Chairman. All right, Commissioner Callahan,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Benson,
I feel I need to abstain because I don't have clarity on the town of Farmington's ownership of the land.
all right, Commissioner Cloud,
Aye.
Commissioner Gemske,
No.
and Chairman Shohorn.
No.
All right, Mr. Chairman, there are only 3 votes in favor. The motion fails, so the special exception is not approved. We'll move
So
on to
I'll
the
entertain a motion for special, for
variance.
variance.
I move to approve the application of Matthew Yard for a variance to reduce the front yard setback from 40 feet to 20 feet to build a new house and reduce the front porch setback from 20 feet to 15 feet for the reconstruction of a single-family home at 100 Red Oak Hill Road.
Could I just ask for clarification? You said 40 feet to 20 feet. I think it's 40 feet to 18 feet. And that was,
That's within the extra that Mr. Daigle asked for, I believe.
I don't-
Yeah, but it should be rounded down to 18.
Round it down, okay, I'll amend the motion to
Sec-
round it down to 18.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, let's have, is there any specific discussion now about these variants?
I think we've beaten the horse.
All right, well, we have to put something on the record, so do you feel
I
that?
think there's sufficient hardship based on the location of the well, the septic system, and the configuration of the lot.
All right, anyone else wish to comment of the,
I agree.
I agree.
okay,
All right.
so.
Roll call vote, Mr.
call the
Chairman.
vote.
All right, Commissioner Callahan,
Yes.
Commissioner Gemske,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Grady Benson,
Yes.
Commissioner Cloud,
Yes.
and Chairman Shohorn.
Yes,
Mr. Chairman, the votes are unanimous. The variance is approved.
okay.
Go.
So let's move on to the Garden Street. Let me just pull now it's the application by Kemper Associates for variance to reduce the side yard setback from 15 feet to 1 foot 8 inches for the addition of a carport at 35 Garden Street. And
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
I'd like to recuse myself for this matter, please.
okay. So if you are recusing yourself, just have a moment. I guess for this particular, I'm trying to remember, it's been so long since we've needed, I think at this time I'm gonna have, let's just go off the record for a second. Does anyone remember who, I remember you more recently, so, and you as well, was it? So, okay, let's go back on the record. I'm going to appoint alternate Commissioner Subramanian for this particular hearing. I just couldn't remember the last time yeah, okay. All right, state your name for the record and your address, please, and your.
Good evening, Jack Kemper, Kemper Associates Architects. 132 Lovely Street's my home address and 790 Farmington Avenue is the work address. That's a lot of information. We're here tonight to look at doing a carport for the house at 30 Garden Street. If you see the site plan, it's really tight. It's paved now already. We could do, if there was room, we would have less of a setback with a detached garage or a detached carport because there's a 5-foot setback for that. There's not room for that. So there's just enough room to do this, attach it to the house. We can get a covered walkway behind the garage, Garrett, if you want to go to the architecture.
This one?
Yeah. What we're proposing is to do something that really reads as a porch. It's a flat roof, an EDPM roof. We will not be seeing the roof. It's all trim, columns, all PVC on concrete piers. It's really designed to be as lightweight as possible. And Garrett, if you want to go to the pictures of the house, we're covering those cars, or one of those cars. So basically it's going where that car is. We looked at putting it in the back, the grades and the grades. There's a big retaining wall that runs behind the house, not allowing us, that not allows us to push it farther back. Conceivably, you could do it farther back behind the house, but the grades, there'd be a drop off. There's also a notch in the lot on the other side, on the south side, that, so kind of can't get us past the retaining wall. The retaining wall goes, if you see the survey, from end to end of the lot. So that's really what's making this our only choice. Let's see. And I think that's about it. It's PVC trim. We really want it to fit in with the house and with the neighborhood. It's a, historic neighborhood. It's in the center of Farmington, Garden Street. It's next to Hayworth's. And we're trying to do the lightest weight possible, the lightest weight visually possible design to accommodate covering the cars.
Before I turn it over to the member, just a couple of procedural questions. Do you have to also go to the Historic District Commission?
No, the historic district is house by house in there. So it's no.
All right. And do you have any communication with the neighbor that was?
We have, I think they've talked to them, but I have not talked to them. So I assume they were all notified. We sent plans and stuff so we've not heard from them, unless you have, Garrett.
No, we've heard nothing.
Right. So let me just go through then. Commissioner Subramanian,
Not at this time.
Commissioner Master Batista.
Nothing.
Commissioner Des Santoro.
Nothing.
Commissioner
No questions.
Walsh, Mr. Cloud.
So this covers just one car, you said, right?
Yeah, there is an existing one car garage now. So this will be the second car.
Got it. And as I look at those plans, it leads to stairs that go to,
The stairs are behind the house.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
it. Thank you.
Commissioner Gray Benson.
No questions?
Commissioner Keller.
No questions.
Just a couple of quick questions.
Sure.
This is, do any of these pictures show where the actual property line is in relation to that retaining wall?
Well, the survey shows, the pictures don't show that, I don't think. The survey shows that.
The retaining wall goes from property line to property line. So here's the northern extent of the property line. Based on the survey, it's a little, an inch over.
Yeah, it actually goes right to.
And then on the south side property line, here's your pins, and here's the retaining wall coming around. I don't know if the aerial photo would help, Mr. Chairman. Here we go. So here you
Yeah.
can see the retaining wall behind the house. Is
Okay.
that what you're looking for?
Yes, and
Okay.
Could you show us the picture again that shows the edge of the bituminous surface, the driveway just before, in the back there?
Hold on.
You just flip through it real quick.
Oh, sorry. So here is standing at the edge of the retaining wall, looking at the back of the house.
Right.
Uh,
And
here's-
is could you just? go
Sorry.
Where you just were, so I see that side of the house. Yeah, right there. So if I'm looking at this image now, which shows the side entrance where the driveway, where there's stairs up to like a.
That's, you're right, that's on the back of the house.
Where is how far back is this carport going to go to that entrance? Is it going to cover that as well?
Yes, it wraps around and as it goes to that, if
Yep.
you look at the elevation.
Okay,
So
and it
here's-
also looks like the house to the left, and I don't know the number of that house, but it looks like the property does slope to the
Yes.
neighbor's property. So what are you going to do about runoff from the roof being only 1 foot from the neighbor's
Well,
property?
I think we can manipulate the downspouts so they're on the back side and go down the retaining wall. We've
you're
already
de-
talked about that.
You're
Yeah.
definitely going to have
Yeah.
a gutter
Yeah.
and
Yep.
and
Yep.
spouts.
Yep. The clients asked for that, actually.
Okay, so is that in your proposal?
Yes.
It specifically includes gutters. I just want to make sure I see that.
I think I put that on there.
Because I'll know.
If not, that could be
Here
a
we go.
I had
condition.
another carport that was really close to the, a few years back, and there wasn't a proposal in the, for a gutter, so that was one of the requirements.
Mr.
Well, I show the roof drains, but the downspouts, but not the gutters, but
Can I-
you certainly could make
Okay.
that a condition.
Yeah, it's labeled on the proposed north elevation, which is the side of the house, which is the side that neighbor's probably looking at the house, and it shows it right here,
Yep, okay,
and I can't zoom in
Thank
any
you.
further.
that's all I have. All right, I'll,
Oh, yeah, gutters and sometimes I can't read my own writing.
all right.
Thank you, Garrett.
Anyone else have any questions? Is there anyone who wants to speak in favor or against the application?
If anyone has called into Zoom and would like to speak for or against the application, please use the raise hand function in Zoom. Again, if anyone has called in that would like to speak for or against the application, please use the raise hand function in Zoom. Mr. Chairman, there are no hands raised.
And Mr. Daigle, is there anything that staff wants to note about this or add for the record or not?
Not that I can think of. I think I did a similar in the agenda review state for where this, because it's so close, I only did a half a foot, so 1.5 feet as opposed to the 1.8 feet.
All right, so you would want, that was my question. You would want any motion to make it be 1.5 feet to take into consideration a little bit of plus
Wiggle.
or minus of the construction after.
Correct. And again, it's if the board is comfortable with that. If not, you can hold it at 1.8 and we'll have to, if there's any issues, they'll have to be addressed at that point.
Got it. Okay. And that's it. Then I would close the public hearing and I'll entertain a motion. You want to make the motion?
Sure. I motion to approve the application by Kemper Associates Architects LLC for a variance to reduce side yard setback from 15 feet to
0.5.
1.5 feet for the addition of a carport located at 35 Garden Street in the R20 zone.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion, it's your motion. Would you like to state for the record?
Sure. I think there's sufficient hardship. From what I got, there's a drop off and notch on the other side, and I just don't think that unless we provide a variance at the construction of this isn't possible.
Anyone else wish to comment? No? All right, so let's call the question. I have no comment. so.
All right. Commissioner Subramanian,
Aye.
Commissioner Callahan,
Aye.
Commissioner Walsh,
Aye.
Commissioner Grady Benson, Commissioner Cloud,
Aye.
and Chairman Schoenhorn.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, sorry.
Oh, that's me.
No, I was looking at my list and then I remembered Commissioner Gemske excused herself, so that's why my count was off. All right. Mr. Chairman, there are 6 votes in favor. The motion passes and the variance is approved.
All right, so
Yeah.
turning to the minutes of the October 15th, 2024 motion meeting, I'll entertain a motion regarding approval of the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes from October 15th, 2024 zoning board of appeals meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we don't need to do a roll call. Commissioner Gemske is coming back in. All in favor of approval of the minutes?
Aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so the minutes are approved. There is a planner's report. You want to briefly discuss? This is something that's going to come up next month, right?
Not necessarily. So that's what the discussion is if a new variance is required or if they can proceed. So that's the gist. So in 2019, and I will give you context for the location first.
Some of us
Yes.
were on the board back then. so
Right.
Clearly remember this application.
So the property in question is 55 Depot Place. So Depot Place is the road off of South Main Street, where right about where the trail crossing is in Unionville. Technically, the road ends about where the Daily Grind coffee shop is. The rest of the road is actually on the rail right of way with the state, and there's the obviously the multi-use trail. So that road continues all the way to the end. There's another industrial building here, and then this is 55 Depot Place at the end. It's been it was subdivided previously. It was historically zoned industrial. They didn't have to rezone it. But it was subdivided out. It's historically been in zone industrial. In 2019, the property owner received a variance to construct parking spaces, a building, and an overhang within the front yard setback, given the small size of the lot compared to an industrial zone. So that it's a 40-foot front yard setback. Additionally, in the zoning regulations, when abutting a residential zone, an industrial property needs a 50-foot landscape buffer in the rear. So that was what pushed the parking spaces and the building forward. The regulations don't allow parking or aisleways within the front yard setback in an industrial zone. So they got a variance to put the parking there. Technically, the driveway, if you want to count that, it's an aisleway if it's adjacent to the parking, but it's the driveway as well. The property owner was able to acquire or is looking to acquire acquired an adjacent piece known as 8280 Depot Place. I'm sorry, Forest Street, other side. His plan would be to combine the two parcels together. Because this new parcel is larger, he can actually fit a larger building within the setbacks and not require variance for the building any longer. Because of the landscape buffer and the tight setbacks within the zone, he would still need to locate the parking within the front yard setback. The change being the previous approval, the parking at its closest point was 15 feet from the front property line. And I believe the total area within the front yard setback for the parking was 840 square feet. The building was 600 square feet and the overhang was 180 square feet for a total of 1,620 square feet within the front yard setbacks that they got a variance for. The change would increase the total area of parking slightly from the 840 to 1,067 square feet, so a 220 square foot increase. However, as the building is no longer located in the front yard, the total area within the front yard setback is decreased by 550 square feet. The parking is also slid back slightly further, so now instead of being 15 feet from the front property line, it's 23 feet from the front property line. It's still within that setback, but it's set further back. I did speak with the town attorney regarding this just to get his opinion. If the board concurs that a variance isn't required because it's a net decrease in the nonconformity of the approval, he doesn't believe a new variance application is warranted. It just needs the concurrence of the board, and it can be a discussion through this as long as no one has an objection requiring a variance. So the question for the board is, does anyone have a strong objection to this change requiring that the owner come back for a new variance? The parking is located on the same property. Even though the property line changed, it's physically located on the same property as the original variance approval. No new notices, no one that was previously notified. I'm sorry. The notices required for the 2019 hearing would be the exact same notices for if a new hearing was required. It'd be the same exact property owners. The increase in the property size does not increase that buffer further away because of the properties in the area. So it's everyone that would have been notified for the 2019 variance would also be notified if the board asked the property owner to come back in for a variance.
All right. So as I understand it, we would still have to have some kind of a hearing, would we not?
If the board concurs that a new variance application is not required.
But wouldn't the neighbors have the opportunity? I happen to remember when I went. to
Yeah,
it,
you- yeah,
look,
you
there
were-
are it's a residential neighborhood
Correct.
behind this.
Correct.
So the question is, can we just say no problem and nothing, don't they at least get notified of this and have the right to at least express a view, especially, I understand this is the end of
Yeah.
that depot place and it was woods and they were putting in some wood chips and stuff. It was
Yeah, it's
more in
a
landscape.
yeah, it's a tree company. The plan does not show those bins anymore. The building's bigger, so I don't know if they'll be storing stuff inside the building. That's the question before the board. So I will state that they still need to go to planning and zoning for a special permit and site plan approval, and the neighbors would be notified at that point as well, because that requires a public hearing. The one neighbor that did come out to the public hearing for the zoning board of appeals, all of their concerns were related to the special permit approval from the planning and zoning commission. Because it was for the-
Last time.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's my recollection.
Right, yes. I think I had the minutes in here. I might have to open, yeah. It was one neighbor concerned about the site lighting, dumpster, hours, and location of the building, which would all be under the purview of the town plan and zoning commission.
Well, let me just open it up to, do you think we should just give it a pass or do you think we should at least have a hearing? It looks like whether, can we have a hearing and then decide it's not necessary the way inland wetlands sometimes decides whether a hearing is necessary for applications?
Wetlands works the other way where they'll have a meeting, the applicant so it doesn't translate to zoning board of appeals. So if in planning and zoning, if there's no special permit approved, it's a site plan, it's a single meeting, there's no public hearing required. What you're referring to is the Wetlands Commission can accept an application, have the application presented to them, then they make the determination whether it's a significant activity or not in accordance with their regulations, at what point, if it's a significant activity, it requires a public hearing per state statute. If, again,
Regulation, certain things are permitted as of right.
right, so there's that's government, and again, it doesn't translate because wetlands is specifically state statute and state regulation. There's not really town to town, there's not a huge difference in wetlands regulations as there is for zoning regulations. In any case,
I'll just say
the-
my gut feeling
yeah,
is just my gut feeling is that we should probably have a hearing, even if it's a pro forma one where we can just discuss it without having to be a formal Can we meet without a formal application being filed, or would there have to at least be an application? We could have a hearing if nobody, and then have no questions, but that's my gut feeling that we don't want to let something go through only to later be,
understood.
I don't know if how other people feel about it.
Theoretically, yes, I would think based on the property owner's time and I don't want to say resources, but if he's got to pay someone to be here, that's his own. At that point, he might as well just make the variance application. And it
I don't wanna
essentially
make
at that
this
point,
unilaterally, how would people feel? Should there at least be a application? I mean,
and the application would actually be for a modification of a previously approved variance.
And the town attorney said what? There's no need.
If it's a total reduction in non-conformity, he did not see a necessity to have another another variance application
And
submitted.
This is the reduction.
Yes, because the total area and the distance from the front property line is reduced.
but is it in conjunction with the construction of a new building? Is that, in other words, are they doing this contingent upon TP&Z approving this new building construction? That's what I'm not.
Yes, so no matter what the 2019 variance stands, if they wanted to come in with a building, they got planning and zoning approval in 2019, they could come in with a building permit tomorrow and build what was already approved. Does that?
I've never been asked, this is the first time it's ever come up and, Carrie's been on a long time here too. What is your reaction to this? What do you?
I don't think it's necessary to have another hearing if we want to do belt and suspenders and I'm, for the record too, the town attorney is my partner.
Yeah.
and He's like right next door. I don't even have to. pick up. I can yell out the door to him. So because it's an overall decrease in the nonconformity, I don't see, if we have a hearing, and I don't see that he's gonna have to have anybody come in, pay anybody to come in. If we have a hearing, it's gonna get granted anyway.
Yeah.
Because it's clearly a reduction in the nonconformity, so
Is that,
I don't
would that
see
be the
point of
only
reaching a
matter that,
foregone conclusion, but
would that
Yes.
be the only matter on?
As far as I'm aware, the deadline's Monday. Uh, and there's no issue with that with Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah.
Hold on. Yeah, hold on. Let me check the calendar. Wait. All right. So our
Meeting for 5.
did I bring my calendar?
I just
Did not. All right.
feel like it sets a weird precedent if we just, just let this go through. Like, I understand, like, if we're gonna grant it anyway, but it's like,
So then we just start doing that?
yeah, like, it just, what would we start doing that in the future? Like,
And we could, of course, have it be a remote meeting. Could we not agree that it will be
Online only.
that'll be online
Yeah.
only for that one meeting, and we could have a,
Yes. Yeah. Again, it's the reason staff is bringing it to the board is because it is a slight change, like the orientation changes from what was approved.
it was. I
Theoretically,
remember we had a meeting a couple of years ago, we changed, we had put in arborvitae, but they wanted to put a fence in, and we did have a hearing on that, and I don't know. you
Right.
remember, We
I
still had a
mean,
hearing on it.
right. Theoretically, so if I'll use the previous variance approval, if they reduce the size of the building and they wouldn't need a new variance application. They just would, with any variance you grant you're granting it to this point. Anything less, it doesn't really matter. It's granted at that point, but if you're reducing
I
it,
see what you're saying.
they wouldn't be coming back to you to change the variance to increase the setback they asked for.
has this happened in the past? Like, ever?
Not that I
in a long time, I don't remember.
Yeah. I've never had-
Because the property owner really isn't appealing to do anything.
Mm.
He's got a variance that entitles him to do more than he's gonna do.
Right,
Right, yeah.
So I have to-
So I don't know that he needs our approval to do what he's entitled to do.
So I don't
And
think-
I don't think it sets precedence because we're just.
Because it's a change, it's the layout is a change from what was approved.
The layout is.
But
The
it's not the
layout-
layout that affects the need for a variance.
Right, so that's the question is, even though the layout's changing, the total area is reducing, the distance from the front property line is increasing so that that's a poor way to phrase it, I'm sorry.
I get what you mean.
The distance from the front property line to the parking area is increasing, so it'll be further set back and the total area will be reduced.
Which I don't understand how that happens if they're adding more parking spots.
So they bought an adjacent property and they're combining the properties together. So the
So you're
parking,
parking there.
so the building will get moved. So the building will get moved to another piece of the property where a larger building can fit within the setbacks and would not require a variance.
Mhm.
The parking went from, because it was tight, you essentially came in and the parking spaces were right in the front property line or right in the front yard setback. So you've got your driveway here, if I can highlight it a little.
So is the
Better.
spot, is it a different place though? Would it require a change in the plan that we approved though? Are they putting even though it's less, are they putting the parking elsewhere?
A little bit. It'll go towards the east slightly. Because now the parking is going from being side entry to, I don't want to say side, it's
Yeah, my gut
from
feeling is we do
pulling
need
in
it-
to coming in
we
and
need
pulling
a
in.
Here and then, so it's not within the previously approved plan, it's smaller, but it's outside of what had been previously approved, right?
Part of it is within that area.
Yeah. So, I don't know, what do people think?
I know, I agree with our chair.
Anyway, maybe
Just-
we could have a quick hearing, even if it's
Yeah.
pro forma. But I think there should be an application because if I recall, if I look at what was approved from the minutes, it's as per the the plan on file with the planning and zoning department, right? With the planning department. Isn't that how we approved it? But we're gonna change the location.
It's both. It says voted to approve the Moran Tree Service LLC application for variance to reduce front yard setback from 40 feet to 25 feet for building location and from 40 feet to 15 feet for parking lot area located at 55 Depot Place, C1 zone adjacent to 47 Depot Place, as presented and filed in the planning.
So
and
it
zoning.
says as presented on file. So this is not gonna be within that on file document, right? It's elsewhere, partly.
Correct.
Yeah, then I think we should at least have approved the changed plan. In other words, if all they were doing is they were gonna make the area that we had previously approved smaller, I would say they didn't need to, but if they want to move it someplace else, then it's not as approved and on file. That's how I look at it. And instead of coming in for that, I have no objection to making that an online meeting, so we don't need to have everybody come in, although I'd like some. I don't know, how do other people feel? I mean, it's, you know, I don't want to make this decision unilateral.
I'm
I
okay if
agree.
it's online.
Yeah,
Yeah.
online, and I agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So if that's the only application, it'll be online. If not, we'll be in person. Again, staff hasn't talked to anyone. This is the only, and again, this came in. Right before Thursday, Wednesday afternoon, Thursday morning. So I did this up quickly. Deadline for ZBA is this coming Monday, the week of Thanksgiving. So, I think it's fine. I think it's fine because the two dates would be after because we're farther away.
Yeah, I feel more comfortable then.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, yes, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?